Hello, everybody, and welcome in Casualty Connect, our video series featuring industry experts on the use of AI in the property and casualty insurance. I'm Frank Giaoui, CEO and co-founder of Optimalex, and today our distinguished guest speaker is Melissa Updike. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
You are the CEO Executive Director of the Kentuckiana Medical Reciprocal Risk Retention Group. You have been in the MPL insurance for 30 years, and you are also known in the business as the data queen. So it's good because the theme today is the early indicators of high risk providers, a data driven approach. Maybe as a starter, Melissa, would you mind giving us a definition of what you call high-risk provider?
In the medical professional liability world, high risk providers are generally driven by their specialty. For instance, a neurosurgeon or an OBGYN physician or a trauma surgeon or vascular surgeon inherently has more risk simply because they are far different from walking into a primary care physician's office
Right.
where the risk is much lower.
Okay, so specialty is the number one indicators. Now, in your current practices, what are the other key factors to watch? What are your currently early indicators of high-risk providers?
I'm looking at claim frequency, claim severity, and credentialing, National Practitioner Data Bank reporting, and
Mhm.
all those things that help us pull together essentially our underwriting data.
All right, all right. You also mentioned in our previous discussions the behavioral factors, which are maybe less rational or less data driven, but still important.
Right. I have the fortune of working very closely with the physicians and nurses that are insured through KMRRRG. And because of that, you get to learn personalities,
Right,
behaviors, cultures, and those things are driven and maybe not, as you've said, data specific, but you start to learn patterns. You may see um, peer review activity for a certain provider. You may see complaints or grievances that may indicate that there is an indicator to watch a certain insured or a certain unit in a hospital even.
yeah. And what about the communication skills, the way they empathize with the patient? You told me once that when they appear maybe with a judge or the jury, this is really critical.
You are spot on with that. When I am teaching risk management education, one of the most important things I tell the providers is your number one risk management tool is to be nice. And I think when you and I were speaking before, I mentioned the provider that has one hand on the doorknob and one hand speaking with the patient. So
Right.
sending that message that as a provider, you have my full attention and the patient has a different experience when the provider is thoroughly engaged, concerned about their care and treatment, and has good communication skills with that patient and family members.
Right, right. Yeah. This makes sense, right? We are human beings and we also react to emotions, not only to science. And so all those variables that you mentioned and others, let's assume you have identified them. What do you expect from AI, from predictive analytics solutions to help you with?
a more thorough way of looking at key indicators within the data. It's one thing to walk around with all this data in your brain and intuitively know certain things about your data, but also to be able to extract data points from the loss information that you have. And you and I have had this discussion. Many insurance companies have a lot of data,
Right.
but they don't assimilate it in any way that can make sense, make predictions. So I do think that that is the most useful tool when it comes to AI, is summarizing many, many key data points that we simply aren't taking advantage of now, even in our own loss data.
So, Melissa, you mentioned several sources of data, and some are internal, but they are not necessarily structured in your historic track record. And some are external sources of data. They are structured, but not necessarily easily accessible. In your experience, how did predictive models and analytic solution help you access or structure those sources of data?
Helping us to identify key data points and giving those to you in a more structured format so that you can make sense of what you are actually looking at,
Right.
would be the simplest way I could say it. And I think as we continue to move forward with artificial intelligence, whether it's in your day-to-day workflow or really looking at how you can use artificial intelligence in structuring your data so that you can make sense of it.
All right, that's clear. And so now we have reviewed the variables. We have a good estimate of the early risk indicators. Let's assume you are on the way to mitigate those risks. So, what are essentially the mitigation strategies and the practical applications you have experienced in your business life with the MPL?
When we talk about this area in medical professional liability, I think more about frequency and severity.
Okay.
Identifying those losses that may occur more frequently, and what are those key indicators within that frequency pattern that you might be able to start to utilize, whether you carry that forth with risk education in certain areas of your organization, your hospital, your clinics, or whether it's with a specific provider. Severity is looking at all of your losses and being able to analyze data from a severity standpoint to start to focus in on, it's one thing to say all labor and delivery cases or birth injuries are high severity. But within that data, there are so many other fine points that you could be looking at. A birth injury for a shoulder dystocia claim may be very different from a birth injury with a hypoxic event. So being able to really focus in, maybe your high level data point is, oh, this is a labor and delivery claim. It's a birth injury, but really digging down, really getting specific into what are those data points that may give me additional information in the data.
Thank you, Melissa. So we have discussed the variables, we have discussed the mitigation strategies. Can we maybe wrap up into the challenges in implementing those strategies, right? There are technology, there are also, organizational issues and human skepticism sometimes within the team.
I think that if you look at most medical professional liability and hospital professional liability companies, they have staff that are managing claims, touching claims every single day. And They have a certain way of doing that, and they have a certain way of looking at data. And this may feel somewhat threatening to them if artificial intelligence is now taking my place, taking my job to predict reserves, predict a claim outcome, predict all those things that, hey, you used to pay me to spend 3 hours on this file to do that, and now you're telling me I can do that in 15 minutes. So I think that is one thing that some may see as a challenge to take that complete different spin. I see it as a total benefit when I can have scientific data on reserving and claim outcomes, taking that information to a claim committee or your board where you may need authority to settle a claim or take a case to trial. You are supported more by scientific data versus Melissa Updike thinks we should try this case. Defense counsel has given it a 80% chance of a defense verdict, but the damages are $50 million.
Right. And so, can you give us an example on how you use those technologies or those scientific approach to build the bridge between your team, the adjusters team, maybe the insureds, your members, and also the board who give the authority?
I think it goes all the way across the board. Once you really start to see the benefit of artificial intelligence and see how it can impact positive outcomes and the um, trust that can be gained within your organization when you send that data out, you can better present the outcomes of claims. And once you are 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it becomes evident as to how the artificial intelligence has helped to set a course, pick one claim or 20 claims, set a course, look at your outcomes, and obviously the goal would be to see those improved outcomes.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Melissa. You were our guest speakers today for Casualty Connect, our video series implementing AI and data analytics in the P&C industry. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you.